It is the Royal Blue Podcast Live. It is the post-Fulham show, and we've got plenty to get off our chest after last night. I'm Ian Croll, and I'm sat next to Connor O'Neill. Connor, how's the mood?
Pretty dour, isn't it? I think it's the best way to describe it. But everyone's a bit flat, a little bit gutted. I think everyone's kicking themselves, and we'll get into why they're kicking themselves very shortly. But yeah, I think and like that, people had a lot of high expectations for perhaps in the end the way we all thought it was going to, and everyone getting up this morning had that little bit of a perhaps not the spring in the step that we all thought they might have had when we recorded the Roble podcast on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, and you know, like you say, we are going to get into it, delve into exactly what happened and what should have happened. But today it could have been and it should have been, you know, so much better.
It should have been, yeah. It really could have been, couldn't it? I mean, you know, Everton were tantalising close to getting to Wembley. 2 games was all that, you know, was all stood in the way if they'd got past Fulham last night. They didn't. It was another night, I think, where, you know, it was another missed opportunity, another night where Everton didn't grasp what was in front of them, I think is the best way to describe it. And there's been too many of them over recent years. And I think, you know, all the good work, all the good, you know, momentum and build, and you know, thing that's been built up in recent weeks, which should probably still remain, kind of felt like it come to a bit of a crushing end last night. And, you know, it ends in the most heartbreaking way possible with a penalty shootout defeat. But I think I'm not getting into it. I think over the course of 90 minutes, Everton were nowhere near good enough. And they certainly were nowhere near with the levels that we've seen them be in recent weeks either. You think of the performance last night compared to the one at Burnley on Saturday, and it was levels apart for all the wrong reasons. So yeah, it was a tough night, I think, because I think something so close, but yeah, it remains so far away now.
Yeah, absolutely. As mentioned, we are live. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. So please submit your questions and get them in the comment section. I'll put them to Connor, and we'll try and get through as many as possible. Connor, we might as well obviously get into it. We've just touched upon it a little bit there, but first point I wanted to make, obviously the team selection came in. You know, we've had injuries, we've had suspensions. You know, last night seemed like the injuries as such still was playing a bit of a part because it was a bit of a makeshift defence. Players clearly looked tired, a bit leggy. So just, you know, Dyche's team selection to start off with, did he get it right? Did he get it wrong?
I think what he'd done was what everyone would have done. I think a little bit. I think I have to say my team selection, what we do with the Echo, I had Keane dropping out, Godfrey moving to left back, and Branthwaite coming at centre back. Just because I thought Godfrey played a lot more at left back. Obviously, under Carlo Ancelotti, it was become a bit of a permanent position for a short while. Yeah. So I thought he perhaps would have got the nod at left back. He didn't. Branthwaite went there instead, and you know, I thought Branthwaite was one of Everton's better players last night, even at left back. I think, you know, the moment in the first half where Tarkowski, you know, carelessly give the ball away, it looked like Harry Wilson was going to get in, but Branthwaite's turn of pace got Everton out of danger. And you know, the only red mark, and I wrote this in my analysis, was that he didn't score at the back post when he was got on the end of Jack Harrison's inch perfect cross. I thought he was superb. So I think in that respect, you can't knock Sean Dyche, because you could argue and say, you know, Branthwaite was an inspired decision to go left back. I thought Michael Keane done really well as well, centre half. I know he got booked for a challenge, which I think was harsh. I don't think it was a foul, alone a booking, but I thought he was solid all night. You know, unfortunate to turn the ball into his own net, but I think it was one of them he couldn't have done anything about it. And you know, he certainly was nowhere near Everton's worst performer. Idrissa Gueye coming in for Doucouré just seemed like the natural one. You know, was nothing really. It was always going to be, I think, Doucouré out, Idrissa Gueye in. So again, you know, you can't have any complaints there. And I just thought it was a night where Everton really didn't get going. It was nothing to do with team selection. It was a night where they didn't really get going, and everything felt so flat, so quick. And I mean, I wrote this again in my analysis where I timed it's 15 minutes in, Tarkowski misplaced a pass out of play, and the groans started, and then groans Kevin. I think there was a spell towards the end of the first half where Everton got back in, pressed a little bit, up the ante. I think, you know, Branthwaite goes close with the header, McNeil has a shot over. The crowd were up on their feet, kind of trying to get behind the team. And then the next time we saw that was obviously when Beto equalised, and I think everyone thought, you know, there's a real chance here. We might get one more chance. Yeah. But apart from them 2 moments, the groans just kind of grew and grew. And I think the frustration showed. And I think it was one of them nights where it was frustration in the stands, frustration on the sidelines, and frustration on the pitch. And I don't think team selection had anything to do with that. I just think Everton didn't get going. And I think we saw limitations that this squad still has in terms of being able to break a team down and actually take the games from an opposition. And I think that was clear for all to see.
I mean, the first couple of minutes when we set up, and obviously when the team selection came in, for me, it looked like we were going to go 5 at the back. Very similar to what we did with against Burnley, which kind of worked. And then obviously as the match went on, within the first 5-10 minutes, it was like 4 at the back. Now I know you've praised Branthwaite there, and this is by any means I'm not slagging him off, but I felt like you could clearly see that he wasn't comfortable on that left-hand side, as in moving forward. I don't know if you agree with that. I think he had a great game defensively, but I think maybe we were missing something down that left-hand side that Michalenko probably could have given us, where if Branthwaite was playing centre-back, it would have been a more cohesive defensive unit than what we already had.
Yeah, but I think that was always going to be expected, wasn't it? I think that, that's what happens when you naturally play someone out there who doesn't normally play out there. I think Everton obviously been a bit humstruck as well, haven't they, in terms of, Michalenko and Young being out at the same time, because you suspect that had Ashley Young been fit, he would have gone and played left back last night, and Branthwaite would have played in the half defence alongside James Tarkowski, but Sean Dyche didn't have that luxury at his disposal. I kind of get what he's saying, but I thought even so, I still thought Branthwaite done quite well. I think that the 5 at the back argument is one that is going to be made if Everton doesn't go Everton's way, and it didn't go Everton's way. I think if we'd have won if Everton would have gone and got another goal after Beto equalise, I don't think any of us would have been sitting here today or talking about 5 at the back. We should have done this, we should have done that. It's the classic in hindsight. Everything's great, isn't it? And everything works out well. That wasn't to be the case. I had no qualms about Dyche playing 4 at the back with Branthwaite at left back. I think he's arguably the best player at the football club, the most comfortable, natural person to be probably going and do a job there. So I think that the suggestion, I think, before the game was that was going to be a 5. But if you actually watch the warm-up, they'd done a drill in the corner where it was a 4 of them in a line, which I think gave it away that they were going to play a flat back 4, essentially. Yeah. But I can see why some people now would say you should have maybe played a 3, because I think actually Nathan Patterson's better. I said on Monday's show, I think Nathan Patterson is better as a wing back than he is a right back. I think it gives him a little bit more freedom and ability. But yeah, I think it's just one of them, isn't it, with formation set up. If Everton win, no one asks these questions, and no one even would dare to care. Should we say one bad result, and the scrutiny comes out, doesn't it? And everyone gets the fine lines.
Well, it is our job to overanalyze.
Of course, and we do like to overanalyze.
Yeah, we do. I mean, just sticking with that then, and I don't want to keep going on about the defense, and because we, Fulham were great. I thought they were, they passed the ball around well, but they weren't really threatening. But this is not having to go at any individuals, but I just felt like as a defensive. Over the past couple of weeks and months, you could tell we've been a solid defensive, cohesive unit, and I just felt like that was definitely not there in the first, at least in the first half. I felt that.
I actually think a lot of this is to do with Doucouré's absence.
Okay,
because I think the midfield looked lost. I think Idrissa Gueye, James Gana, and Amadou Onana are 3 very good players. But not one of them has got the abilities what Doucouré does to link to play with Calvert-Lewin and to get everyone up the pitch. Yeah. I think what we saw last night was essentially just a guy wants to sit in front of the back 4. Onana was pretty much alongside him for large parts, I thought. And then James Garner's kind of floating in between, but not playing as a number 10.
Yeah.
Not being able to get on the ball and make things happen, just kind of floating around and trying to pick up second balls.
Yeah.
And I think what happened last night, I thought, from a perspective, was that Everton, in terms of if Doucouré plays, he gets them up the pitch because he goes and squeezes with Calvert-Lewin, which means that Onana and James Garner have got to squeeze up the pitch, which means the back 4 have to squeeze up the pitch because they don't want to leave the gaps in behind. We didn't see that last night because I think Idrissa Gueye and Onana were too deep. Garner was just kind of chasing shadows in the middle of the park and trying to make things happen. And Calvert-Lewin was up top, frustrated by him feeding off scraps. So I think where you're coming from is right in terms of it didn't look defensive cohesion. But I think Doucouré's absence has a lot to do with that, because I think we saw last night, it's the classic case with Doucouré of you don't know what you've got until it's not there.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw last night is that he's an absolutely fundamental part of everything that's going to be good about Everton this season. And his pace energy makes a massive difference in getting everyone 20, 25 yards up the pitch. And on the flip side of that, and I've actually wrote this to stuff online today in tomorrow's paper, I think that's where Onana's got to do more. And he's got to be the one who takes the game by the scruff of the neck and gets everyone 20 yards up the pitch. I think sometimes he just settles to kind of play the easy way, should we say, and go and play alongside Idrissa Gueye.
Yeah.
But he's got to take the control and take demands and say, right, we're moving 20 yards up the pitch and we're going to get up. I don't think that happened last night, and I think Everton paid the consequence of that because they didn't get up the pitch as freely and as comfortably as probably what they have done in recent weeks. When you look at the goal against Newcastle, for instance, the 2 goals, that comes because Everton are high up the pitch, ready to pounce on mistakes by Newcastle in their final third.
Yeah.
Last night, I don't think the fullbacks of Fulham got closed down anywhere near like they did against Newcastle. And if anything, it just invited the pressure because there was pockets of space for them to pick the ball off and retain possession.
I'm glad you brought Doucouré up because, you know, in my notes and my questions, I have got stuff that I wanted to bring up. So, you know, you've kind of touched upon it a little bit, but I'll go into it a little bit more, further into the podcast. Before we do, just kind of, you know, the last point on the defence, and again, I just think we've been so defensively solid over the past couple of weeks and months that I was a little bit disappointed in how, you know, obviously we only conceded 1 goal. It was an own goal. It's come from Michael Keane. I mean, he just can't catch a break sometimes at the moment. I know, fantastic goal against Burnley, but his defensive duties, you know, whether you just describe it as a mistake, as an own goal, I'm not saying it is a mistake. It's very unlucky, but like I say, he just can't catch a break sometimes in the heart of that defence.
Yeah, I mean, it's so unfortunate. So unfortunate. I mean, I don't think he really could have done anything last night. I actually thought, to be fair, for the goal, Nathan Patterson didn't cover himself in glory because I think Robinson goes past him far too easily and is able to get into a position where he can cause damage. Yeah. And obviously, it's one of them, isn't it? If Keane leaves it and someone taps it in, everyone moans at him. If he goes for it, what happens. People moan him. You can't win either way, can you? But what I will say is, I think you've got to give him enormous credit because no matter what gets thrown at him, what people say, what people think, he just keeps coming, dusts himself back and comes again. And I think last night, he obviously the goal, I thought up until the goal, he hadn't put a foot wrong, and then after the goal, he didn't put a foot wrong. He didn't let it affect him. His head didn't go. He picked himself up, and let's face it, he took the best penalty in the shootout. You know, and again, again, nerves of steel because I think, ironic, isn't it? You look at the penalties, and when you see Michael Keane walking towards the penalty spot as number 3, I think it was. Certainly in the press box, everyone's looking around going, why are they sending the centre back forward? And then he produces a penalty that you think, Alan Shearer would have been proud of back in the day, and he's got nerves of steel, lad, and you've got to give him enormous credit for that because he's been through so much. I mean, on the end of, sometimes justified criticism, sometimes perhaps it's gone over the top, but he just keeps picking himself up and dusting himself down, and, hats off to the lad because he just keeps coming back.
And you can't ask for more, can you? I mean, I made reference to this in the pod that we both did against the pre-Fulham one, wasn't it? He's not a centre-back. He's a centre-forward, and that penalty was the best penalty of the shootout. Proved it for me.
Yeah, I mean...
He needs to transition
into
a centre-forward.
If he was an 18-year-old kid coming through, you'd be saying you need to get yourself out up the pitch because you've got, unbelievable finishing ability. Yeah. Probably come a little bit to his career now to move forward, but... Yeah, and like I say, when he was walking towards the spot, I think everyone in the ground, everyone in the press box where I was sat was kind of looking, going, hey, Keane, take the penalty, number 3, what is going on? And yeah, and you're thinking, well, he's probably just going to smash this as hard as he can and put it down the middle, but no, he perfectly placed it and knew exactly what he was doing and walked back with ease to say, like, what were you all worried about, lad? I had this all under control. And yeah, like I said, I think he deserves enormous credit because, for what he's been through and where he is now, I think, hats off to the lad. And, you can't help but want him to succeed, I think, because he's shown a perfect attitude. He doesn't moan, doesn't groan. By all accounts, when people speak at Finch Farm, he's the moral pro, And I think, the last 2 games, he's took his chance. He's come in and done really, really well. And I don't, probably for him, it's just unfortunate that, he's up against now probably England's best young promising centre-back in Jarrod Branthwaite. So I think Tarkowski's obviously a shoo-in given his importance in the leadership role in which Dyche sees, but it's just unfortunate for Keane that there's a young up-and-coming star in Jarrod Branthwaite ahead of him who was destined for the very, very top. But I think any other year, Keane probably would have been, right pushing on the door now for a regular place. And you think back up to Aston Villa at the start of the season when he played, and I think we can all say he had a torrid afternoon at Villa Park, but he's just bounced back, and hats off to the lad.
Are we still on course for the Michael Keane statue at Bramley Moor? Or
if that penalty would have got Everton through last night, very possibly. But unfortunately for him, Amadou Onana had other ideas.
Okay. Well, we're getting questions coming in now. I can see it on my laptop here. So keep sending them in, and I'm going to come to them very soon. But before we carry on, Connor, you kind of touched upon it a little bit, and my friend who I was sat next to in the Lower Gladys during the game last night, very early on in the game, what did you make of the atmosphere? Because we kind of both said it's a bit flat, and you've already said flat, but we said this doesn't feel like a normal Everton Cup tie at Goodison Park under the lights. And this is not like having to go with the fans. I don't know whether there's a bit of nerves or I don't know. It just didn't seem like the normal Everton. Do you know what I mean at the time?
Yeah. It was strange, wasn't it? Because perhaps I was guilty of probably egging this maybe a little bit, but I thought it was going to be like classic Goodison under the night. It's going to be rocking, the roof's going to come off.
Yeah.
And I think, with all due respect, it started with that best intention. I think before the game and stuff like that. That was really kind of a big best intention. I think ultimately in the end, there was just nothing to get behind on the pitch, was it? It was flat on the pitch. It was disjointed. It was a tough. I mean, it was a tough watch in general. I mean, I know you shouldn't say this, but I think back to last season when Everton played Man City towards the end of the season, and that day Everton struggled because they were playing Man City, but some of the football City played was absolutely superb. And I remember saying afterwards to one of our colleagues in the national press, it was a joy to watch Gundogan there. And you probably shouldn't say stuff like that, but you come away thinking that was a magical. He scored a worldy free kick, set one up, and just absolutely ran the game from the middle of the pitch. You didn't have that last night. It wasn't like you sat there in awe of someone on the pitch going like, my God, what a player he is, or what was some performance. I thought Fulham was poor as Everton at the time, and I think that was the thing. It didn't have that feel, did it? And I also think as well, expectations changed. And I wrote this again this morning that, I think the groans come because the standards have been set so high in recent weeks or recent months, certainly. And I think, people expected a lot more last night when they weren't quite seeing that. They struggled to get behind what they were seeing, you know what I mean? And I think it just fizzled out a little bit, did it, before it really got going.
So that's what I was going to say. Do you think, we know the majority of Everton fans are quite knowledgeable on football, and did you think, not just because of the setup, but 10 minutes in, we knew this wasn't the normal Everton from the past 4 games? Did you think they were kind of predicting and preempting kind of what was to come, and it was going to be a tough night? It wasn't just going to be a walkover.
Yeah, I think people ultimately knew, didn't they, that it was going to become a struggle. It wasn't going to be pretty, and if Everton did get through, it was going to be in probably an ugly, unvintage way, if that's the right way to say it. So I think everyone knew it was going to become a struggle, and it did become a struggle. And I think it was just one of them nights, wasn't it, where there was very little to get behind on the pitch, and that reflected in the stands. And it just become, like I said earlier, a real night of frustration, I think is the best way to describe it more than anything. And, you've got to get behind something. You've got to be given something to get behind. And I don't think last night Everton gave their fans enough to get behind. Yeah. And I think that's obviously why it felt so flat and perhaps didn't quite reach the levels that we thought it was going to reach before the game. But I think, don't get me wrong, if we were going the other way and Everton would have scored within 5 minutes, I think Goodison would have been absolutely rocking, and the roof would have come off. And I thought it did come off a little bit when Bessel got winning, because I think everyone thought, this is it now, we're going to... And I certainly said, I was sitting next to Joe Thomas in the press box, and, I certainly thought Everton were going to get another chance after that goal, but it was quite disappointing that they didn't manage to carve out an opener. I thought we'd get one more chance, but it wasn't to be.
Okay, so we'll quickly just change a little bit and run through some questions. Dave Dempsey kind of said on Facebook, how come there wasn't a half-hour extra time before the penalties?
That is basically because the rules changed a couple of years ago. Extra time was taken out by the Football League, and it just went straight to penalties, which I have to say, maybe people might disagree, so I thought 30 minutes might have been good. From a print production deadline perspective, from our point of view, it was one of the best things that ever happened, because 30 minutes of extra time just adds to the pressure and the stress. So, yeah, I to be honest with you, I kind of understand why they just go straight to penalties, because
I thought it was better.
I certainly think that sometimes you just, there's been games, hasn't there, where they play 30 minutes extra time, but everyone knows it's destined for penalties, and both sides are dead on their feet and stuff like that. So, yeah, the rules changed a couple of years ago, and it's straight to penalties now.
Okay. It's just Lewis on YouTube has said or asked, do you think Beto was pushing for a start over Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Feels like Dominic really looks like he needs a goal at this moment.
Yeah, I think he does need a goal. I think he's a centre forward who craves goals. I've been forced to speak to Dominic Calvert-Lewin quite a few times, and he loves scoring for goals. It's his pride and joy, scoring goals. So this run will hurt. I think on Monday we spoke about his overall gameplay and stuff like that. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin still very much classes himself as a number 9 and someone who wants to score goals. He hasn't done that for the last couple of weeks. I think Beto is pushing for a start. I thought last night Calvert-Lewin looked tired. I didn't think he looked. There was a moment for me in the second half, and it wasn't long actually before he come off where I think the ball got knocked down the line, and he kind of went clean through him, and Leno come running out.
Yeah.
And it was one of them moments where you're thinking, and it's probably a very old 80s, 90s style way of looking at it, but take the goalie and the ball out, and you've got an open goal to go at. And Calvert-Lewin backed off and allowed Leno to clear, sorry. And it wasn't long after that Sean Dyche kind of turned away in frustration, spoke to the bench. Next thing, Beto had the nod to come on, and that felt like a bit of a moment where I don't know, maybe the injuries are playing on his mind, or he's just a little bit fatigued, a little bit tired, and he didn't quite have the energy to get there. But it was one of them moments where you're thinking, just go take the ball in the man there, and you've got a clean shot on goal. You've got a real chance, and it didn't quite fall for him. But I thought last night he was feeding off scraps for large parts of the game, and I think we've seen with Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin is a very, very good goal scorer if you get the ball to him in the right areas. He's not going to create goals out of nothing himself. And the way Everton played last night, like I said earlier, with the gaps between the midfield and him, you can't be expecting to take the ball 25 yards from goal, beat 3 men and put it in the top corner.
He's not Messi, is he?
Yeah. And last night there were far too many times where he was isolating, he's feeding off scraps, he's having to chase lost causes. So I just thought, personally last night he was struggled because he was feeding off scraps, and but I do think Beto is pushed for a start, because I thought the weekend he come on, he done really, really well. Last night he come on, he done really, really well, put himself about, got himself a goal. And, again, very similar. If Everton win on penalties, he's probably the hero today. And, everyone's looking at it going, that goal, could send us to Wembley type thing. And so I think I've long felt that in this run of games to come now, there will be one where Beto will start over Calvert-Lewin, because I just don't see how Sean Dyche will play Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, and play Calvert-Lewin in all 3 of the games. Because I think he's going to have to rotate and freshen up. And I thought Everton looked tired last night in general anyway. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this weekend Beto is given the nod over Calvert-Lewin to start against Tottenham. But I think it will hurt Dominic. He's not on this run of goals. I mean, it was quite interesting actually when I was forced to speak to James Gana after Everton beat Bournemouth. I think Calvert-Lewin was on a run of 6 goals in 6 games at the time, and he missed 2 chances. And James Gana actually said himself today, I think in the end he was trying too hard because he's desperate to score goals.
Yeah.
So I think that that just gives an insight into how he approaches games and what he wants to do. And yeah, it just wasn't his night, but it wasn't his size night as well. I think is the big thing. It wasn't just him who struggled.
Do you think he's putting too much pressure on himself as well? Because we've spoke quite regularly over the past couple of weeks in the podcast how great it is that the goals are being spread around the team, and that the pressure has kind of been taken off Calvert-Lewin from not scoring goals. But we always say, and like everyone said, that the way we play, Calvert-Lewin is pivotal to it. So, everyone keeps going, oh, he needs a goal. But I haven't heard too much from the fans on Calvert-Lewin to say, get him off the team, because we know how pivotal he is to how we play. So he must be putting that pressure on himself, surely.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because I think you look at the difference he makes when he plays to when he doesn't play. I mean, it's a bit different now because obviously Beto was there, whereas, last season it was Neil Maupay who had to come in and replace Calvert-Lewin, and it was an onerous task for him. There's so much reliance on him that you can't help but think having a better team with him in it than without him in it.
And I think I think Beto, although hopefully he's going to be a goal scorer, he doesn't do the job that Calvert-Lewin does.
No, and he's obviously unproven in the Premier League, whereas Calvert-Lewin is proven and tried and tested. And it was only a couple of years ago he was linked with a 50 million move to Arsenal before the injuries took hold. Yeah. And it was interesting actually when you speak to Calvert-Lewin. I spoke to him after the Lisbon game this summer, and he was talking about coming back from injury and the time he'd been given and stuff like that. And he actually said himself, I know when I play. It's all on me. I am the only centre forward at the club. There's a lot of expectation around me. I've got to put a shift in. I've got to try and score. I've got to hold the ball up. He basically was embracing what is asked of him. But when you think of what is asked of him, it's a lot to take on your shoulders, And you think of last season, Everton were fighting relegation. And let's face it, everyone's saying, well, when Calvert-Lewin gets back fit, it'll be okay. Now, if you're Calvert-Lewin sitting there thinking, well, hang on, you can't just put all this on me. Like, I'm gonna come back and score 2 goals every game and keep the club up. You know what I mean? But obviously, he played a massive role in helping that happen. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think people are never going to call for him to go out the team because I think they see how valuable he is when he's not in. It's like I said, it's like Doucouré, isn't it? You don't know what you've got till it's not there. Yeah. And perhaps when Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't been, it's been shown and it's been noticed. So there's always that thing. But I think now with Beto, perhaps this weekend it might be time to do something a little bit fresher and give Calvert-Lewin a break and let Beto have a run.
So, are we in real danger of running certain players into the ground then? Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's one that we spoke about, but McNeil, I don't think he had a bad game as such, but I just think he looked so tired last night, and to the point where, some of his passes and crosses were just, you might as well not done them because they weren't getting anywhere. Harrison is another one. He was substituted as well. So there's a lot of these key players are just playing game after game and not even like coming off the pitch really, to staying on for the full 90.
Yeah, I think we are in danger of running this side into the ground a little bit with the games we've had to play and the games that we've played so far. I think the big problem is Everton don't have a massive squad, do they? They don't have a squad that's full of depth. And when the fixtures start coming thick and fast like they have done and do over Christmas, it starts to take a toll. And I think that was always the worry with this Everton side, is that put the best 11 out there on paper, fit and firing, they're comfortably a mid-table team. 1 or 2 injuries and suspensions against the wrong opposition and things get tough. Yeah. I think on Saturday we were quite fortunate that Burnley were there for the taking, and we were able to get away with the luxury of, when Doucouré comes off in a 2-0 lead, it's about managing the game. Yeah. Branthwaite doesn't play, but Keane and McCaffrey can come back in and do enough. This weekend it might be different if we've got 1 or 2 knocks because Tottenham are a really good team. Yeah. City come to Goodison, it'll be on Wednesday. Another great team, 1 or 2 missing, it shows. So I think the problem Sean Dyche got, he just doesn't have the players at his disposal to make changes and rest things, and players have just got to go again and go again and go again. It's tough. And I think, one thing I will say we're on this is probably time for patience. And if players do start having bad games and not looking 100%, I think they've got to be given benefits out. That should be a tough run of games. And you've got to, but the good thing is you've got to look at the work that's been done. Last night was a major disappointment. I think it'll be here for a while, especially if Fulham go and get Middlesbrough tonight in the draw for the final 4, because then it really does become an opportunity miss. Because how many times are you going to get to the last 4 of a semi-final and draw a Championship club? Yeah. Probably not very often. Yeah. But you think of the 4 games that we've just won, the games that we won prior to the Manchester United defeat, there's been a lot of hard work done, and the bounce back's been really strong and Everton to put themselves in a good position. So I think there's plus and negatives, but I do think there's a point now where there's going to be games where we don't look at our best and the players look a little bit tired. And I think fans have got to have patience and accept that that's just the way it is when you haven't got a massive squad. Yeah.
Did any Fulham players stand out for you last night then?
I thought Harrison Reed done quite well. Yeah. I thought, ironically, Everton were interested in taking him on loan or signing him on transfer deadline day back in the summer. I think they made an inquiry to Fulham, but Fulham had no interest in letting him go. I thought Tosin Adedeyu, the centre-back, done really well for them, to be fair. And obviously, kept his composure to finish from the spot. But I thought it was a poor game in general, wasn't it? Yeah. That lacked any real quality. And I think, if you put them 2 sides on paper, there's not much between the 2 of them, really.
What did you make of Iwobi's performance first time back? It was the first time back?
First time, yeah.
And his reception as well, booed.
I thought he got cheers, though, didn't he, when his name got read out?
He was booed in the lower Gladys.
He got cheers. There was a warm applause, I think it's the best way to describe it, in the main stand when his name was read out where I was sat. I thought his performance was okay, wasn't it? I thought it was a very Alex Iwobi performance. He ran rounds, got stuck in. Nearly scored a worldie, which probably would have been befitting of his return, where Pickford makes the save in the second half.
Good save, wasn't it?
But apart from that, it was a very Alex Iwobi performance, which illustrates that nothing much has changed since he left Everton for Fulham.
The Fulham fans seem to have taken to him, though.
Well, I think the thing with Iwobi is, and this is why Everton fans end up taking to him towards the end, is when he just puts a shift in and runs around and does all he can, you can't help but appreciate what he's doing, because that's the minimum you want to see. And, like Everton fans have experienced over recent years, that isn't always the case. So, I think you can see why Fulham fans are taking a shine to him, because, he just put a shift in and tries to make things happen. They don't always come off, but yeah, I thought it was just a very Alex Iwobi performance.
We've already touched upon it, but I just it was in my notes to talk about it now. So one thing that we did miss was obviously Doucouré. So we need him back on that side as soon as possible. And Doucouré, who's been crowned Everton Fans Footballer of the Year for 2023.
Indeed. Yeah, they all give Blue supporters the chance to vote and have their say on who they wanted to be named Footballer of the Year. Myself and Joe Thomas put that shortlist together. So if anyone's got any complaints, send them to Joe, not me. But he's come out on top. Obviously, the final 4 was himself, Jordan Pickford, Jarrod Branthwaite and Dwight McNeil. Jarrod Branthwaite perhaps would be a surprise one, given he actually started playing for Everton in August, but I just think he's been that good. He was my pick, I think, let's put it this way, as chairman of the Jarrod Branthwaite fan club. But yeah, I think Doucouré was always going to come out on top, wasn't he? Because you look at the calendar year, and actually I wrote this here when we done the piece to say he'd been crowned, and You know, he actually starts January by being frozen out by Frank Lampard. You know, left out the squad for the game at West Ham. Looked like he was going to leave the football club at one point. Obviously, Frank Lampard gets sacked. Sean Dyche brings him back in from the cold. Next thing you know, he's become this goal-scoring midfielder on a one-man mission to keep Everton in the Premier League. Scores twice at the Amex as Everton beat Brighton 5-1 in probably the results of the season. Yeah. You know, certainly the most unexpected results of the season. And I think every Everton fan's got to agree that was the most unexpected results of the season. Then obviously, you know, a goal that will be long remembered for years to come. The one against Bournemouth on the final day. And then the big question was whether he could take that into this season and carry on that form. And he's certainly done that. He's been absolutely superb. He's got better. Obviously being rewarded now with a new contract, stayed at the club a little bit longer. You know, obviously another big boost is that he's not going to go and play in the African Cup of Nations for Mali. He's decided to stay.
Let's hope he stays injury free.
He's staying at Everton, which is ironic, isn't it? When you think they could lose him, and you know, he says he doesn't want to go, and now he does get injured. But yeah, I think he's been absolutely superb, hasn't he? And I wrote this again, you know, in my analysis, that the biggest compliment you can pay him is that Everton are a better team with a minute than without him. And I think that was on show last night.
I mean, a lot of you know, over the past, you know, since the seasons began, there's been you know, whether you see this as fair or not, criticism over Dyche's subs or lack of subs, and we've obviously mentioned, you know, he hasn't got much options off the bench, but you know, he did make one specific sub yesterday that changed the game in our favour. Unfortunately, obviously, the final result didn't go our way, but Beto came on for Calvert-Lewin and had an immediate impact with the goal.
Yeah, I think it was one that we wasn't surprised to see. I think, you know, Beto had been out warming up for a while, and it was clearly in Sean Dyche's thinking to bring him off the bench. I thought it was one that made sense. I think, I mean, you can't look too much into it. We don't know that little moment with Leno perhaps confirmed in Sean Dyche's mind that it was time to freshen things up top. But I just thought, you know, that's what Beto's there for. That's why you have two centre forwards. If one perhaps isn't at the races, or you need that little bit of injection, something different, you bring him on and you give him a chance. Yeah. Danjuma got a chance last night off the bench. I thought he done really well. Yeah. You know, because he'd become a bit of a forgotten man, if I'm being honest. You know,
I thought he looked sharp.
You know, he looked, as he had that, you know, he was in the team, wasn't he? He dropped out against Brentford, didn't really get a look in. Come back in against Burnley in the League Cup, ironically, in the previous round. And I thought it was pretty poor that night, if I'm being honest. You know, again, it's all about moments, isn't it? And I remember, like, one night, that night, he tried a flick, and the ball hit the inside of his leg and bounced the other way, and you're just thinking, not your night. And if you want to send the right message to your manager, I don't think attempting flicks on the halfway line is the right way to go about it. Obviously, you know, we all saw last night he showed a little bit of class. I think it's safe to say, done really well for the goal, didn't he? It was just crosses the box that, you know, and I think he got himself in a good few positions. So I thought last night the subs were quite well. I think they both had positive impacts on the game, and you know, it's tough, isn't it? Because, you know, it feels like substitutions again. It's all in hindsight, isn't it? Because if Sean Dyche throws Danjuma and Beto on, they both score or play a role in the next round. No one says anything about the substitutions. No one says they're inspired. It's just, I think people have got this thing in the mind that Sean Dyche doesn't like making changes, doesn't like making substitutions. But I thought last night he got them spot on. I thought at the weekend he got them spot on as well. Against, you know, Burnley, it was the right time to freshen things up when he did. So I think the big thing with Sean Dyche, well, though, was that a lot is made about the squad and the substitutions, but he doesn't have a lot to choose from. You know, you can only pick what's on the bench. You know, you look last night, there's Jensen Metcalf's on the bench, there's, you know, a goalkeeper, a centre-back, you know, unless you're not changing your centre-backs unless an injury happens. So there wasn't a lot to choose from, really, and I don't think there's been a lot to choose from this season. I think that perhaps sways Sean Dyche's thinking.
There's been a bit of speculation over Danjuma that he's got a bad attitude. I mean, that's just speculation, and I'm just bringing it into this pod. I definitely think he looked sharp last night. He had that kind of volley. That was just an absolute, you know, if it had gone in, it would have been an absolute worldie. But is there any suggestion, you know, coming out of Everton or like from
no, not that I'm aware of. I think he's done really well. I asked Sean Dyche a while ago actually about, you know, Danjuma and where he stood, and Sean Dyche just basically said, you know, it had been tactical. Basically, you know, he dropped out the team. The team then went on a run of form, and you know, you don't change a winning team. You know, it's quite simple, isn't it? You know, and I think we all agree with that. You know, no one joined with a winning run before the 10 points at November international break was saying to, you know, Sean Dyche's got to get away to get Danjuma back in this team. You know, everyone was saying you've got to just stick with what you're doing. You know, it's clearly working. There's been no indication, certainly from people I speak to, that Danjuma's got a bad attitude or anything like that. I think that comes from the fact he's had so many clubs.
I was going to say,
someone who's so young, people just presume it, you know. But you know,
but clubs do seem to be wanting to get rid as soon as possible when he gets there. Well, maybe that's unfair. I don't know.
I think that is a little bit unfair. I think with Tottenham last year, he was clearly sold a dream of, come in and help us get Champions League football, but then realised very quickly that Harry Kane, Son, Richarlison were all ahead of him, and he was probably going to find himself down the pecking order. Then I think he got caught in the madness of his Spurs, because obviously they, sacked Antonio Conte, brought in a replacement, interim, sacked him. Then something like they basically have 3 managers in a short space of time. But he was someone Everton wanted in the summer, someone they clearly earmarked to come in after missing out on them last January. I don't think there's been any indication he's got a bad attitude or anything like that. I think he just was unfortunate. He dropped out the team. Then things, upturning form transpired, and he's found himself on the outside looking in. But I think certainly heading into the festive period now, and the fact that Sean Dyche going to have to use his squad in the next 3 games because they come in the space of a week, he sent the perfect message last night that he could have a role to play, and he could certainly make an impact moving forward.
Okay, back to questions then. So, Two Wheel Lucas from YouTube has said, poor refereeing. And Connor, I've got this question in my notes as well. So, any complaints from the referee last night, Graham Scott?
I think they're all pretty below par, bang average, aren't they? I think, it just is where it is now, isn't it? I think you could get so tired up talking about referees and analysing the performance, can't you? That I didn't think it was great, but I've seen a lot worse.
I mean, if we'd won the game,
no one cares, do they?
We wouldn't have cared.
No.
We've obviously lost.
No.
All right, then. Okay, well, to the major talking points of the night then. So, inevitably what has cost Everton the victory and a place in the semi-final, the Onana penalty. And, I've got my notes here, but, for the purpose of unity, I don't want to personally bash Onana. I don't want to do that. But I'll be honest with you, Connor, that is up there with one of the worst things I've ever seen an Everton player do at Goodison Park on the pitch. And I don't want to. It's not a personal attack. I'm just saying, as
Sure.
No, it's not. It's not a personal attack. It's not. It's. I do think that is, it has cost us a place in the semi-final. If he'd gone out there and put his laces through it and the keeper had saved it, or he hit it over the bar, or hit the post, or whatever, I don't think you'd be gutted, but there wouldn't be too many complaints. But I mean, it was clear for me there was an element of arrogance in his penalty there.
Arrogance just the way is the week, isn't it? After very Keane, Virgil van Dijk,
Amadou Onana, Ian Croll. Come at me.
So, I honestly, I've been amazed by a lot. I've seen a Goodison over the years from both as a fan and as a journalist. A journalist over the last 2 years, there's been a lot that's gone on that has amazed me. Last night, though, was right up. I mean, I just could not believe what he'd done. I have to say, the look. Not often journalists are left looking flabbergasted and in disbelief at what goes on around them. I looked around the press box when I missed out on last night, and everyone was just like, "Oh my word, what has he done?" And as for the people around me in the stands, in the main stand, let's just say there was a lot of foul and abusive language being used in terms of to describe what their emotions were. It's one of them, isn't it? If he does that and then dives the other way and it goes in, you get the what a cool, composed cucumber. Yeah. The lad's got it all. He's got the swagger. He's got this. When it goes as badly wrong as what it did last night, the opposite comes at you, and you get it. Obviously, people rightly take aim. I just could not believe what he'd done. I think the pressured situation, knowing that if you score, your team are going to go through the last 4, big opportunity, and he absolutely fluffed his lines. Idrissa Gueye, I think it's just unfortunate. He's gone for the corner, hit the post, and by that point, we're on penalty number 7 of the night. So obviously you're on the other end of the scale now in terms of the people who don't want to take them but have got to take them because there's no choice. But Onana being the 5th choice, stepping up, you're thinking, just put your foot through it, just put everything you've got behind it, roll, blast it into the back of the net, do whatever just don't do that. And it was. I think the stunned silence after it said everything. I think people were in disbelief at what they'd seen. And look, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because you can't just blame Amadou Onana for the fact that Everton are not in the final 4 of the Carabao Cup. That is incredibly harsh because there's a lot of other factors that didn't really go Everton's way last night. But the fact that he was in that position to send Everton into the semi-finals and he done that was a tough pill to swallow. And I think, perhaps today you'll be sitting there thinking, if I had that moment again, I would just put my laces through the ball and smash it as hard as I could.
I mean, ironically, like you suggested before, when Michael Keane stepped up, you were thinking, "Oh no, what are we doing here?" But obviously, smashes it the best penalty of the night, one of the best penalties I've ever seen, to be honest. And then Onana steps up, and you're probably quite confident in him placing it in the side net either way, and then he goes and does that. I mean,
it wasn't like, it wasn't even like good placement, was it? I mean,
no.
you watched it. I mean, when I was sat in the press box, it was a little bit obscured, so you just saw Leno save it. It was only when I got home and saw the replays after different angles, like you can see it from there. I mean, he's not even like placed it in the corner.
Well,
it's 2 yards. It's 2 yards next to Leno. I mean, I think Leno could have just stepped to the side and put his foot on it. To be fair,
yeah, but he hasn't even attempted. If you watch it back, he hasn't really attempted to send the keeper the wrong way either.
No.
Do you know when Jorginho does it?
Yeah.
You know he's trying to send the keeper the wrong way because that's how he takes the penalty. This is literally just a pass back to the keeper.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely awful. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on it but it obviously was, it was a flashpoint of the night, and ultimately that was the chance for Everton to go through with, regardless of whether, we played bad or not. That was the goal. It was there for the taking. I'm not trying to sell Onana or anything like that or speculate on his future, but there's probably a good chance that he's going to leave Everton at least within the next year or two. If an offer comes in for him, so he's obviously going to go on to potentially pastures new and be a successful player in his own right because he is a good player. Does he need to do something now on the pitch? To kind of say sorry for that. A special moment because he's just going to be remembered for that moment now for his Everton career.
I mean, you just described my talking point here because my talking point basically on he had the chance to become a hero and now he's going to be remembered.
I did read your piece, Connor,
for all the wrong reasons. But yeah, I mean, we've probably got a lot of making up to do, but it's one of them in football, isn't it? I think obviously people won't forget that, but if he puts in a man of the match performance on Saturday, Everton win 3 points. I wouldn't say all be forgiven, but I think people, it just is what it is, isn't it? You know what I mean? I think, it's not the time to sulk or be too downhearted because Everton have got to pick themselves up because they've got bigger games to come. They can't sit around and mope. They've got big games, and it was one of them moments, wasn't it, where you're thinking like, I know people say this, but where's the club cursed? And I was just thinking, how's he done that? Why has he done that? Only he knows why he's done it and what he was thinking. But certainly I think moving forward, we won't see Amadou Onana or any Everton player attempted to do that again with a penalty or a penalty shootout. Yeah,
I mean, we can't dwell on it too much, and that's why certainly now until the end of the season, he's got to put it behind him, and he's got to show why he is this world class player that people potentially see in him. You can't just keep going on about I know it only happened yesterday, but like I say, I just feel like he's going to be remembered for it if he doesn't do something with Everton now. And I'm not saying it needs to be a special goal. It just when you're playing, you need to be at your best for them 90 minutes. Take control of the game. Show everyone why you're going to be this box to box midfielder. Score a couple of goals.
That's the big thing for me from where Onana is like, and again it comes back to like I mean, when he Everton signed Roberto Martinez, it basically compared him to Patrick Vieira and how he plays and stuff like that. Yeah. But for me, he doesn't grab the game by the scruff of the neck enough, and that's what I was saying here about like
he's too passive.
Last night, Doucouré was obviously missing, so you lose that kind of ability. That's someone who gets everyone up the pitch because he goes and chases him behind Calvert-Lewin or feet off Calvert-Lewin. For me, like last night's a prime example where Onana's got to take control and say, right, we're all going to move up the pitch here 10, 15, 20 yards. We're going to squeeze, we're going to get high, we're going to press on the front foot. Yeah. He doesn't. I don't know whether it's maybe sometimes he wants the easy way out a little bit, or perhaps he's being told to sit a little bit deeper so he doesn't see it as his role to move everyone up the pitch. But I think for him to become the midfielder that people think he can become, and for him to be the person he wants to be, he's got to start doing that on a more regular basis. He's got to be that person who takes control, charging, leads from the front, and show that he's got that ability to be like, I will grab the game by the scruff of the neck and I will literally take control here and move forward. We don't see that enough, I don't think, at the minute. We just see flashes.
And it's when you see it when he gets the ball and the space that he can actually create around him and move us forward. You see it, like you say, he doesn't do it enough, but sometimes he'll get the ball. There's not really too many people around him, but he'll just pass it back to the same player who's given the ball. And you just think, like, it's exactly what you're talking about. Take the game by the scruff of the neck, take control, and he's got to do that now for me.
Yeah.
Because I've never been, well, I have, but one of the angriest I've ever been leaving the ground last night. And, I didn't,
the angriest, yeah.
I didn't really, I didn't really want to react to it or tweet anything or do anything like that because I just thought I might overreact. But I do think it's definitely up there still with one of the worst things I've seen an Everton player do on a Goodison Park pitch. It's up there with like the Morales penalty incident all them years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's like a sense of arrogance around what he thought was the right thing to do. But
when you look at Everton, just going off on a quick tangent,
it's fine.
Penalties are always a big part of the cup exits, aren't they? 4 of the last 6 seasons, Everton have been dumped out the League Cup on penalties. That's stat by Gab Buckland, by the way, last night. The Everton Stato Supremo that he is. Within 5 minutes of the Everton exit in the cup, come over and told me that one. And also you link back to Roberto Martinez's last season when Everton played Manchester United at Wembley and Everton got a penalty. And they had one of the best penalty takers to ever play for him in Leighton Baines. And for reasons that are still remaining unknown to this day, he gave the ball to Lukaku to take it. Yeah. And Lukaku missed. And, they say it's sometimes fine on small margins, but sometimes it's just not, it's them small moments, isn't it, that make all the difference. And when you look back and think of the cup exits and stuff over the years, penalties are pretty much a fundamental part of where it's gone wrong.
Well, so another stat as well, and I don't know whether this came from Gab Buckland, but we have got a shocking penalty record at Goodison Park, haven't we? I think we won 1 in 8 or something like that.
I think we've won once since Borussia Mönchengladbach.
From the 70s.
From the 70s, we've won 1, I think, which is quite, I mean, I know they're not every year, but it's still quite some going, isn't it? Even by Everton's horrific standards on things.
Not great. Like you mentioned there, though, kind of Sean, small margins. So, Pickford saved 1 and came agonisingly close to saving at least 2. Very, gutting really that he got his hand to some of them. And it was certainly the Fulham's last one that won them, I think, was it? I think he got his hand to that, and it was a big hand, and it still went in.
Yeah, I mean, I have to confess, I haven't watched the penalty shootout back.
No, I haven't. I couldn't.
I've just seen Onana's penalty miss because it was all over social media when I got home last night. Yeah. But I thought he could have got at least. I thought he could have done better for 4. One of the national press I was talking to, he thought he should have got 2 last night when we were talking about this before the presser started. But I thought he could have done better with 4. I think there was 4 where he certainly went the right way and got what appeared to be really strong hands on them, but not enough to keep them out. So I don't know quite what happened, but I thought the only thing what shocked me last night as well, Pickford actually on penalties, is I thought he would have took one before we got to where it was.
Yeah,
I thought because he's quite confident taking penalties. He took one for England a couple of years ago.
Yes. Well, he would have had to if it carried on
in a Nations League tie, but I was quite confident taking from the spot, and I thought he might have pushed himself forward to take one.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But I just thought, when you get that close, there's always that thing, isn't it? If you get that close and you get that good a hand on it, why didn't you keep it out? And I mean, look, it's not for us to sit here, isn't it? Tell Jordan Pickford where he's going wrong as the goalkeeper because we're not fit to lace his gloves or fit to lace his boots or put his gloves on. But there is just that thing where you think, if you get that close, can you not keep it out? You know what I mean? But unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
Okay, well, just the last point then, Connor, before we come to an end, we have been chatting for just over 50 minutes now. But Matt Jones on the was it it was the post-Burnley one, wasn't it? Post-Burnley, but
post-Burnley struck pre-Fulham.
Yeah, he kind of brought up the subject of momentum and kind of said, how Everton have got momentum and how important it is, but he also did mention how fragile momentum is as well. So, has our momentum kind of been stopped dead in its tracks? Or
I don't think you can say it's been stopped dead because we'll only know that on Saturday when we land up against Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and we see 5 o'clock, isn't it, when the full time, so we'll have gone. That's when we'll know if momentum stopped there, because if we get comfortably beaten there, people start going like, what's going on here? If they bounce back and get, as I think a point on Saturday, be a really good result. I think if Everton picks up a point, I think that'd be a solid point, and one of the better ones they'll pick up this season. So if they get a positive result, then momentum hasn't stopped. But they just felt that little bit of legginess about last night, didn't he? That little bit of kind of fatigue somewhat setting in a little bit, and some of the players looking a little bit too tired and a little bit kind of maybe could do with a breather, which they're not going to get moving forward, because like I say, we don't have the biggest of squads, and all it takes is a few more injuries and suspensions to start taking its toll, and we are incredibly thin on the ground. So I don't think we can say momentum's been stopped dead. I think last night is a huge blow. An opportunity missed, like I've already said. One that'll leave, I think, a few questions as well in terms of, could we have done more, should we have done more, etc. But I do think at the same time, if we get a positive result on Saturday, it was just one of them nights where things didn't go our way. And, we'll just have to carry on the impressive league form and hopefully set our eyes on winning the FA Cup.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds so easy, that, doesn't it?
It does.
And if it is as easy as that, then great.
Well, this one's going to hurt and smart for a while, but, say plenty to be positive about still.
I think that it'll really hurt tonight if Fulham get Middlesbrough in the semi-final draw.
And Liverpool go out as well.
Yeah. Or
the more you win at Anfield.
But I think at the same time, what might soften the blow, and I shouldn't say this because it sounds bad, but if Fulham get Liverpool, then we've probably been spared more Derby anger and Derby fume, which we've seen over the last few years. So, pros and cons, I think, is but yeah, it's going to hurt, and obviously it's a missed opportunity, and one that I think fans will feel for a while, but we'll only know really if momentum stops dead. I think if Everton come to be beaten on Saturday, but there's still a lot to look forward to. Still. There's no reason why we can't get up the table a bit more and start putting results together. And the big thing, a cup run would be great, don't get me wrong, and I've long harped on about Everton should take things seriously in the League Cup, etc. But I just think, the big thing for me this season is if we can get to March, April, and we're not nervously looking over our shoulder, every game counts, having to watch what the teams are doing around us, and certainly not getting into May and playing games where we've got to win to stay up. Good Lord, if we have to do that again next season, I don't know how we'll be feeling, but so yeah, there's obviously disappointment, but certainly still optimism in the air. And I think there's no reason why we can't continue to climb the table and put results on the board.
Well, are you about on Friday? Are you going to bring this positivity?
I'm not about on Friday. I am off tomorrow and Friday.
Right, okay.
So yeah, someone's working the weekend. It's a little pre-Christmas off, but yeah, I won't be around, but I'm sure the lads will be in, joyful mood with the festivities close and whatnot. Yeah,
well, I'm sure we'll have the pre-Spurs Royal Blue podcast, which will drop Friday.
Upbeat edition.
Fingers crossed. I don't know whether I'm going to be on it or whether I'll be producing it or whatever, but yeah, I'm sure the lads. Gav Buckland hasn't been in for a while, so I'm sure Gav Buckland will be back.
Yeah, I think he is around on Friday, Gav, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Connor, thanks for the chat. I've been your host, Ian Croll, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast Live.